Here's something that'll shake you up. Right now, while you're listening to these words, someone just took their final breath. And right now, while you're thinking about that, someone else just planted a seed they won't live to see become a mighty oak. Death and growth happening simultaneously every single second of every single day. Most people spend their entire lives trying to choose between these two realities. They think they have to pick a side, live for today or build for tomorrow, enjoy the moment or plan for the future. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you've ever been sold? You know, that story has stayed with me for decades because it captures something most people never quite figure out. We're all caught between two powerful forces. One voice whispers, "Live it up, this might be your last day." The other shouts, "Save everything, plan for the future, don't waste a thing." Most folks pick one side or the other, and that's where they get into trouble. Let me tell you about a mentor of mine who changed my entire perspective on this. Here was a man in his 70s who would get up every morning at 5:30 and tend to his garden. Not just any garden, mind you, but an orchard he'd been planting for 20 years. Apple trees, pear trees, walnut trees that wouldn't reach maturity for another 30 years. His grandchildren would ask him, "Grandpa, why are you planting trees you'll never see grow up?" And he'd smile and say, "Because someone planted trees for me that I'm enjoying today." But here's the beautiful part. This same man who planned decades into the future would spend his afternoons sitting with each grandchild individually, listening to their stories as if every word was the most important thing he'd ever heard. He'd watch sunsets like they were the last ones he'd ever see. He'd savor his wife's cooking as if each meal was a celebration. He understood that building for tomorrow doesn't mean missing today. The truth is, most people mess this up completely. They think living like today is your last means throwing caution to the wind, spending everything burning bridges, acting reckless. That's not living, that's just expensive dying. Real living means being fully present, fully engaged, fully appreciative of what's right in front of you. It means treating the conversation you're having right now as if it's the most important conversation of your life. Because you know what? It just might be. On the other side, building as if you'll never stop doesn't mean ignoring today for some distant tomorrow. It doesn't mean postponing joy, postponing love, postponing life until you've got everything perfectly planned out. I've seen too many people save up their whole lives for a retirement that never comes, or comes too late to enjoy. They build and build and build, but they never really live. Here's what I learned the hard way. Early in my business career, I was terrible at this balance. I was so focused on building for the future that I missed my children growing up. I'd rush through dinner to get back to my plans and projections. I'd skip family gatherings because I was too busy working on tomorrow's opportunities. And you know what happened? Tomorrow came, and I realized I'd traded away all of my todays to get there. Then I swung the other direction for a while. I thought life is short, I better enjoy it. So I started living like every day was my last. I spent money I didn't have, made decisions without thinking them through, acted like planning was for other people. And let me tell you, that didn't work out so well either. Living like today is your last doesn't mean acting like tomorrow. Doesn't matter. The secret I discovered is understanding what each philosophy really means. When you live as if today is your last, you're not being reckless. You're being intentional. You're saying this conversation matters. This moment with your family matters. This work you're doing matters. This sunset matters. You're not just passing time, you're making time count. And when you build as if you'll never stop, you're not postponing life, you're extending it. You're saying that the choices I make today will echo through years, maybe decades. The relationships I invest in now will grow stronger. The skills I develop now will serve me later. The character I build now will define who I become. Think about the farmers who plant trees they'll never sit under. Are they sacrificing their present for their future? Not at all. They find deep satisfaction in the planting. They enjoy imagining the shade those trees will provide. They take pride in contributing something lasting. The act of planting is as fulfilling as the eventual shade. Or consider the great cathedral builders of centuries past. These craftsmen knew they were part of something that would take generations to complete. Most of them would never see the finished structure. But every stone they laid, every detail they carved, was done with the same care as if the entire cathedral depended on that one piece, because in a way it did. You see, there's no contradiction between these two approaches when you understand them correctly. Living fully today and building for tomorrow are not opposites, they're partners. They feed each other. When you know you're building something lasting, today's work becomes more meaningful. When you're fully present in today's work, your long-term building becomes more solid. The danger comes when people go too far in either direction, live only for today, and you become like a person spending their savings without earning any income. Eventually, you run out. You end up old and unprepared, having burned through all your resources and relationships. Build only for tomorrow, and you become like someone who earns money but never spends it, accumulating wealth but never experiencing the life that wealth could provide. But when you get the balance right, something magical happens. Your days become both meaningful and purposeful. You're present enough to enjoy the journey and focused enough to make sure you're heading somewhere worth going. You appreciate what you have while you're working to create more. You love deeply while you're learning constantly. You celebrate today while you're preparing for tomorrow. This is the paradox that changed everything for me. Once I understood that these weren't competing philosophies but complementary ones, my whole life shifted. I started approaching each day as a gift to be unwrapped slowly and completely, while simultaneously planting seeds for seasons I might never see, but generations I care about certainly will. You know what separates a master craftsman from an amateur? Watch them work. The amateur rushes through each piece, thinking about the next one, worried about deadlines, focused on quantity. The master, he approaches each piece as if it's destined for a palace, every cut deliberate, every detail perfect. He knows this might be his masterpiece, so he treats it like one. But here's the beautiful thing. He's been doing this for 30 years, building a reputation, developing skills, creating a legacy that will outlast him. He's not choosing between excellence today and success tomorrow. He's making them the same thing. That's the secret most people never learn. There's a world of difference between being urgent and being desperate. Urgent means this matters. Desperate means I'm scared it won't work out. Urgent is focused energy. Desperate is scattered panic. When you live like today is your last day, you're not supposed to become desperate. You're supposed to become urgent about the things that truly matter. Let me tell you what I mean. Years ago, I had a chance to take a business deal that would have set me up financially for life, but it meant missing my daughter's graduation. Most people would say, hey, you've got to live like today is your last. Take the deal. But that's desperate thinking. Urgent thinking said this graduation happens once, my daughter needs to know she matters more than money. And you know what? If I'm the kind of person who shows up for what matters, more opportunities will come. Here's what happened. I went to that graduation. I watched my daughter walk across that stage, and I saw something in her eyes that told me I'd made the right choice. That business deal, it fell through anyway because the other party wasn't trustworthy. But 6 months later, a better opportunity came along, one that worked with my values instead of against them. That's the difference between urgent living and desperate living. When you're desperate, you think every opportunity is your last. When you're urgent, you know that living with integrity creates more opportunities than you could ever need. Desperate people make decisions from fear. Urgent people make decisions from love. Love for excellence. Love for the people who matter. Love for the person they're becoming. But here's where it gets interesting. The same principle applies to building for the future. Most people approach their long-term goals desperately too. They think they have to sacrifice everything today to have something tomorrow. They postpone happiness, postpone relationships, postpone living, thinking that someday when they've built enough, then they'll start enjoying life. That's just as backwards as living, only for today. Real building, sustainable building, comes from a place of abundance, not scarcity. When you truly understand that you're building as if you'll never stop, you realize you don't have to rush. You don't have to sacrifice your soul for success. You can take time to do things right. The compound effect works in your favor when you understand this. Small, consistent, Excellent actions performed with presence and joy will always beat frantic, desperate attempts to force results. The person who writes 1 page a day with love and attention will finish their book before the person who tries to write 50 pages in a burst of desperation once a month. Here's what I've noticed about people who get this balance right. They seem to have more time than everyone else. Not because they have more hours in their day, but because they're not wasting energy on anxiety about the future or regret about the past. When you're fully present in what you're doing right now, you get more done in less time. When you're building with patience and consistency, you don't have to keep starting over. Think about the seasons. Spring doesn't desperately try to become summer. It just focuses on being the best spring it can be, knowing that summer will come naturally. Fall doesn't frantically try to hold on to summer or rush toward winter. It just focuses on the beauty and purpose of fall, trusting the rhythm of growth and rest. Most people fight the seasons of their lives. They want to be in harvest when they should be planting. They want to be planting when they should be harvesting. They want to skip the preparation and go straight to the payoff. But life doesn't work that way. Every season has its purpose, its gifts, its lessons. When you're in a season of planting, be fully present to the planting. Feel the soil, smell the earth, take pride in each seed placed with care. Don't spend your planting season wishing you were harvesting. And when you're in a season of harvest, be fully present to the harvesting. Celebrate the abundance, share the fruits, savor the sweetness. Don't spend your harvest season worrying about the next planting. The magic happens when you realize that every season is both an ending and a beginning. Every day is both a completion and a fresh start. Every moment is both precious because it won't last, and powerful because of what it can create. I learned this lesson the hard way in my marriage. For years, I thought love meant always thinking about how to make tomorrow better for my wife. I'd plan surprises for next month while missing the conversation we were having right now. I'd work late to afford a vacation next year while she sat alone tonight. I was building for our future but neglecting our present. Then I learned to love urgently but not desperately, to be completely present in our conversations while still planning for our dreams, to appreciate who she was today while supporting who she was becoming, to build our future together instead of building it for her without her. Here's the truth about gratitude and ambition that most people get backwards. They think gratitude means being satisfied with what you have, and ambition means being dissatisfied with what you have. So they think they have to choose. Be grateful and stay small, or be ambitious and stay miserable. But real gratitude isn't passive satisfaction, it's active appreciation. It's recognizing the value of what you have so clearly that you want to create more value. Real ambition isn't desperate dissatisfaction. It's inspired vision. It's seeing possibilities so clearly that you want to turn them into reality. When you combine urgent living with patient building, you get something beautiful. You get a life where every day matters and every day contributes to something bigger than itself. You get to enjoy the journey while you're traveling toward a worthy destination. You get to love deeply while you're growing continuously. You get to appreciate what is while you're creating what could be. Let me tell you the difference between a dreamer and a designer. A dreamer says, someday I'll have a beautiful house. A designer says, today I'm going to lay one perfect brick. The dreamer waits for inspiration. The designer creates with perspiration. The dreamer talks about tomorrow. The designer works on today. But here's what makes a true designer special. They find as much joy in laying that single brick as they will in walking through the finished house. I once knew a man who spent 15 years building a stone wall around his property, not because he had to, but because he wanted to. Every evening after work, he'd go out and carefully select stones, fit them together, make sure each one was exactly right. His neighbors thought he was crazy. Why don't you just hire someone to do it in a week, they'd ask. He'd smile and say, because then I'd miss 15 years of sunsets while working with my hands. That's the secret to building an empire while savoring each brick. You've got to fall in love with the process, not just the result. You've got to find meaning in the daily disciplines, not just the distant dreams. You've got to celebrate the small victories, not just wait for the big ones. Most people get this backwards. They think building for the future means suffering in the present. They believe that enjoying today means you're not serious about tomorrow, so they create this terrible choice. Be miserable now and happy later, or be happy now and sorry later. But that's not a choice you have to make. Here's what I learned about goal setting that changed everything. Don't just set goals that inspire you to work harder. Set goals that inspire you to work differently. Set goals that make today's work more meaningful, not just more difficult. When your long-term vision enhances your daily experience instead of competing with it, that's when real progress happens. Let me give you an example. I had a friend who wanted to write a book. For 3 years, he talked about this book. He'd say, someday when I have time, I'm going to write the great novel. He was waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect circumstances, the perfect inspiration. Meanwhile, days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years. The book remained a dream. Then something shifted. Instead of waiting for someday to write a book, he decided to fall in love with writing today. He started writing 1 page every morning, not because he was trying to finish a book, but because he enjoyed the process of creating something beautiful with words. He stopped focusing on the end result and started celebrating the daily craft. You know what happened? 6 months later, he had 180 pages. A year later, he had his book. But more importantly, he'd had 365 mornings of creative fulfillment. He'd built his dream while enjoying every step of the journey. That's the difference between living in someday and building from today. Someday thinking says, I'll be happy when I reach my goal. Today building says, I'm happy because I'm moving toward my goal. Someday thinking makes you a prisoner of your own ambitions. Today building makes you a partner with your dreams. But here's where most people get stuck. They think this means you should be satisfied with where you are. They think enjoying the process means you don't want to improve your results. That's not it at all. Enjoying the process is what gives you the energy to sustain the effort needed for extraordinary results. I remember when I was building my first business, there were days when I felt overwhelmed by how much I needed to learn, how far I had to go, how many obstacles stood in my way. I was so focused on where I wanted to be that I forgot to appreciate where I was. I was working 18-hour days but getting no satisfaction from the work because I was always thinking about what came next. Then I had a conversation with a mentor who asked me a simple question. Are you building a business or building yourself? I said, I'm building a business. He smiled and said, wrong answer. You're building yourself. The business is just the gymnasium where you work out. That changed everything. I started paying attention to the skills I was developing, the character I was building, the person I was becoming through the challenges. I started celebrating small improvements in my abilities, not just improvements in my bank account. I started appreciating the problems I was solving because they were making me stronger, not just cursing them because they were making me tired. Here's the truth about successful people that most folks don't understand. They don't seem to have more time because they work faster. They seem to have more time because they don't waste energy fighting the process. They embrace the discipline because they know discipline is freedom. They embrace the sacrifice because they know it's an investment. They embrace the challenge because they know it's education. When you truly understand that you're building as if you'll never stop, you realize something profound. You don't have to rush. You don't have to cut corners. You don't have to sacrifice quality for speed. You can take the time to do things right because you're not desperate for quick results. You're patient enough to build something that lasts. This is what I call working on your business and in your business simultaneously. Working in your business means handling today's tasks, solving today's problems, serving today's customers. Working on your business means developing systems, building capabilities, creating assets that will serve you for years to come. Most people think they have to choose. Either work in the business and neglect the future, or work on the business and neglect the present. But the best builders do both. They handle today's responsibilities with excellence while they're building tomorrow's opportunities with intention. Think about planting shade trees. The person who plants a tree knows they probably won't enjoy its full shade, but they plant it anyway because they understand something beautiful about time and contribution. The act of planting is satisfying in itself. Watching it grow brings daily pleasure, and knowing that others will benefit brings deep meaning. That's how you build wealth, build relationships, build skills, build anything worth building. You enjoy the planting, you appreciate the growing, you anticipate the harvest. You don't postpone satisfaction until the tree is fully grown. You find satisfaction in proof. Every stage of its development, the key is creating systems that work while you live. Systems that generate results while you sleep, while you play, while you focus on other things. But building these systems isn't drudgery. When you understand that every system you create is expanding your freedom, increasing your options, multiplying your impact. When you get this balance right, something magical happens. Your daily work becomes an expression of your deepest values. Your long-term goals become natural extensions of your daily habits. Your present and your future stop competing and start collaborating. You're not just building something great, you're becoming someone great in the process of building it. Here's what I want you to understand about legacy. It's not what you leave behind when you're gone. It's what you create while you're here. Legacy isn't built in grand gestures and final moments. Legacy is built in Tuesday morning conversations and Thursday afternoon decisions. It lives in how you treat the person who can't do anything for you and how you handle the moment when no one is watching. I think about a teacher I once observed who transformed my understanding of what it means to live fully while building something lasting. Every student who walked into her classroom, she looked at them as if they were destined for greatness. Not just the smart ones, not just the well-behaved ones, but every single one. She saw potential where others saw problems. She saw diamonds where others saw rough stones. But here's what made her extraordinary. She didn't just believe in their future potential. She celebrated their present reality. When a struggling student finally understood a concept, she didn't just say, "Good, now you're ready for the next level." She said, "Do you realize what just happened in your mind? You just proved to yourself that you can learn anything." She made each moment of growth feel like a victory worth celebrating. That teacher understood something most people miss. The way you treat today's opportunities determines tomorrow's possibilities. The way you handle today's responsibilities creates tomorrow's reputation. The way you love today's people builds tomorrow's relationships. She wasn't just teaching curriculum. She was building human beings. And she found as much joy in the daily process as she did in watching her students succeed years later. This is what happens when you truly grasp the power of small daily disciplines, creating extraordinary results. You stop waiting for the big moments to make a difference. You realize that the big moments are made up of 1,000 small moments, and each one matters just as much as the grand finale. Let me tell you about the ripple effect of living fully in each moment. Every conversation you have with complete presence creates a memory that someone will carry for years. Every task you complete with excellence sets a standard that influences everyone who sees it. Every challenge you face with courage gives someone else permission to be brave. Every moment you choose love over fear, generosity over selfishness, growth over comfort, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the lives of people you may never know you've touched. But here's the beautiful thing about understanding this ripple effect. It eliminates regret. When you know that every moment matters, you stop wasting moments. When you know that every choice creates consequences, you start making better choices. When you know that every day is both precious and powerful, you stop treating days casually. Regret comes from two places. Either you lived like today didn't matter, or you built like today was all that mattered. Either you were present without purpose, or purposeful without presence. But when you combine urgent living with patient building, regret becomes almost impossible. Because you're always doing both things that fulfill you today and things that serve you tomorrow. I was talking to a man recently who was facing a serious health challenge. He told me something that stopped me in my tracks. He said, "You know what's strange? I'm not afraid of dying. I'm afraid of not having really lived." Then he paused and said, "But when I look back at my life, I realize I did live. Not perfectly, not without mistakes, but I loved deeply. I worked meaningfully. I contributed something. I lived like each day mattered, and I built like my life would go on forever. I have no regrets." That's what this philosophy gives you. The peace that comes from knowing you've been faithful to both the moment and the future. The satisfaction that comes from appreciating what is while creating what could be. The confidence that comes from building something solid while enjoying something beautiful. The relationship between mortality and motivation is fascinating. Some people think about death and become paralyzed by fear. Others think about death and become frantic with urgency. But the wisest people think about death and become focused on what truly matters. They use their awareness of life's brevity not to panic, but to prioritize, not to rush, but to be intentional. When you really accept that your time here is limited, you stop wasting it on things that don't matter. You stop trying to please everyone and start focusing on serving the people you're called to serve. You stop chasing every opportunity and start choosing the ones that align with your values. You stop accumulating stuff and start creating meaning. But here's the paradox. The more you accept the temporary nature of life, the more you want to create something permanent. The more you understand that you won't be here forever, the more you want to contribute something that will be. That's why mortality motivates building, and building gives meaning to mortality. How do you measure a life well lived? Not by the applause you receive, but by the value you create. Not by what you accumulate, but by what you contribute. Not by how long you live, but by how fully you live. Not by the problems you avoid, but by the problems you solve. Not by the comfort you achieve, but by the character you develop. A life well lived is measured in moments of presence and years of progress, in daily disciplines and lasting contributions, in immediate impact and enduring influence, in personal growth and public service, in private integrity and public generosity. But here's the ultimate paradox of living this way. The more you let go of outcomes, the better your outcomes become. The more you hold loosely to results, the more impressive your results tend to be. The more you focus on serving others, the more you end up being served. The more you give away, the more you seem to have. This isn't some mystical magic. It's practical psychology. When you're not desperate for specific outcomes, you make better decisions. When you're not attached to particular results, you take better risks. When you're not focused on what you can get, you become more valuable to others. When you're not worried about your own success, you become better at helping others succeed. I want to leave you with a story about a conversation that happened at someone's bedside in their final days. Their family gathered around expecting to hear final words of wisdom, last-minute advice, profound insights about life and death. But you know what this person said? They said, "I'm not worried about what I'm leaving behind because I never really held on to it in the first place. I lived like each day was a gift to unwrap completely, and I built like each day was a brick in something bigger than myself. I have no regrets because I was always doing both things that made today meaningful and things that would make tomorrow possible." That's the ultimate truth about time, purpose, and fulfillment. Time isn't something you save or spend, it's something you invest. Purpose isn't something you find, it's something you create. Fulfillment isn't something you achieve, it's something you experience along the way. So here's my challenge to you. Stop choosing between living and building. Stop choosing between present and future. Stop choosing between appreciation and ambition. Choose both. Live today like it's your last, with full presence, complete engagement, total appreciation for what's in front of you. And build today like you'll never stop, with clear vision, consistent action, unwavering commitment to something bigger than yourself. Because here's what I know for certain. Today's choices echo through eternity, but eternity begins right now. The legacy you're building isn't something that starts when you're gone. It's something that started the moment you decided to make your life matter and it continues every single day you choose to live fully while building faithfully. Let me give you something practical to take with you. Every morning when you wake up, ask yourself 2 questions. First, how can I be completely present to what matters most today? Second, what can I do today that my future self will thank me for? These aren't competing questions. They're complementary ones. The answer to both might be the same action. Maybe it's having that difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Present living says do it because relationships matter now. Future building says do it because unresolved issues compound over time. Maybe it's starting that project you've been thinking about. Present living says begin because creating brings joy today. Future building says begin because skills develop through practice over time. Maybe it's spending quality time with your children. Present living says engage because these moments are precious and fleeting. Future building says engage because the relationship you build now determines the connection you'll have with them as adults. Maybe it's investing in your health. Present living says exercise because it feels good to move your body today. Future building says exercise because the habits you create now determine your vitality for decades to come. You see how these work together? When you understand both philosophies correctly, they don't create tension in your life. They create clarity. They help you identify the actions that serve both your immediate fulfillment and your long-term success. They help you recognize opportunities that others miss because they're only thinking in one time frame. This is how you build a life of no regrets. Not by avoiding mistakes, but by making sure your mistakes come from taking action rather than avoiding it. Not by playing it safe, but by taking risks that honor both your present values and your future dreams. Not by choosing between love and achievement, but by achieving through love and loving through achievement. The time is now. The place is here. The person is you. Live as if today is your last, but build as if you'll never stop. That's not a contradiction. That's the secret to a life without regrets and a legacy without limits.